Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a little weekly reading vlog because I am very much in the mood right now to read dragon books. I very much fell into the hype of Fourth Wing. I'm obsessed with Fourth Wing, thus my obsession with dragons has just grown, and all I really am in the mood for right now is to read a whole bunch of dragon books. I feel like other than Fourth Wing, I really haven't read that many dragon fantasies. The only other one that I can really think of is like Game of Thrones. Those aren't like extremely dragon heavy, but other than that, I really can't think of that many. So the past couple of weeks, I have been purchasing a lot of dragon fantasy books, and now is the time. I'm gonna spend this week living my best dragon writer fantasy. So first, let's go through and find all of the books that I'm gonna be reading in this vlog, and then I will tell you what they're all about. All right, this little section of my bookshelf has, I think, most of my dragon books. So we have this one up here, Dragonfall, which is a new release. So we'll do that one. Hearthstone, which is a book that I've owned for so long. We'll do that one. And then A Natural History of Dragons, which is also a book that I've purchased recently, but it's one that's been on my TBR for a very long time. I also have this book right here, which I might get to this week. So I'll pull that one down and we will start with this stack here. I have 4 dragon books that I have pulled off of my shelf that I could possibly read this week. So first up, we have Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. This one actually came out the exact same day as Fourth Wing, but I feel like I have seen so much less about this book. So this one is about a world where dragons were like revered as gods, but then the humans sort of banished them. And now the last male descendant, the last male dragon, has found his way back into the human realm, and he's disguising himself as a human in order to like get revenge on the humans. I don't fully know. So it's a dragon shifter. It sounds super interesting. I'm excited for that one. Then, like I said, Hearthstone. This is a book that I've owned for so long, and I feel like this has been on so many of my TBRs over the years, and I've just never gotten to it, but it sounds like my perfect book. It is Pride and Prejudice, but they're dragon writers. Like, what could make Pride and Prejudice better? Mr. Darcy being a dragon writer. That's literally what it is. It is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, but there are griffins that are attacking people, and so the Bentine family hires a band of writers to come down and hunt this horde of griffins, and one of those writers just happens to be Alistair Daird, aka Mr. Darcy. I just think I'm gonna love it. And it is finally time that I've read this. Another book that I have not owned this one for a long time, but it has been on my radar for a long time, and that is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This one looks like it's very interesting because it is told as a memoir about this woman who is studying dragons. So I feel like this one is gonna be like more historical fiction vibes with like a touch of dragons versus these other ones which are like very fantasy, but it sounds so good. And then lastly, we do have Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons. I do want to mention this one. I probably won't get to this one this week, but this is a dragon book that I have that is on my radar that I really want to read. I probably will get to it soon, but just probably not in this vlog. But it's about a woman who inherits a dragon egg, and she must now care for it. And it sounds so cute. These are the 3 books that I will for sure be reading this week in this vlog and having just like the best dragon times. Okay, so I am 100 pages into A Natural History of Dragons, and I am loving it. It totally reminds me of the Veronica Speedwell series, which you guys know is one of my all-time favorite series. It has like a very strong fantasy of manners vibe to it, and it's super interesting because, like I said, it's told as a memoir that Lady Isabella Trent is writing about herself becoming the most prolific dragon naturalist in history. So it starts out with her as a little kid and how she discovered her love of dragons, and then going through like her whole life. And so this first part, the first 100 pages, was her discovering her love of dragons, but because she's a woman and women aren't meant to become educated or read books, she kind of has to sneak books out of her father's study to read them and study dragons. She ends up getting married to this man who also has a passion for dragons. She convinces him to let her go on an expedition where they're gonna study dragons, and so that is where first part left off, is now she's going on her very first expedition. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just loving it. It's so good. I feel like it's a blend of a bunch of my favorite things, like historical romance, Veronica Speedwell, but then like this really like kind of whimsical, magical vibe to it. And other than the fact that there's dragons, it doesn't feel very fantasy. It's like as if it was real world, but there just happened to be like dragons around. Even if you're not a big fantasy reader, if you like historical fiction, you could really be into this. It genuinely feels like an actual memoir, but like written really well. I don't know. This year I've read a few books that are like memoirs, but they're fiction. The other one was A Certain Hunger, which was like a memoir written from a female serial killer who was a cannibal. And I loved that. That also felt like very real, like I was actually reading a memoir of this real person, but obviously like it's not real, and this has that same vibe. And I think that's like one of my new favorite storytelling or like trope or something that I love, and I'm gonna have to try to find more. I just came in from sitting out on my back patio and I finished A Natural History of Dragons. Oh my god, and I loved it. I feel very, very similarly to this that I did the first time that I read the Veronica Speedwell series. I'm gonna keep comparing it to that because that is the most similar thing that I have read to this book. And I feel like is if you take the Veronica Speedwell series, the like kind of writing style and vibe of that series, plus the main character, Lady Trent, I feel like has a lot of common characteristics to Veronica Speedwell. So like if you take that and then also combine it with, I have not read this book, but Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. That book I know has also been compared a lot to Veronica Speedwell, but that one is fantasy, and it's about a woman who's like writing an encyclopedia about these mythical creatures. So like if you combine those two, you get this. And it was so good. I really loved it. I even found myself like emotionally invested over particular things and characters that I did not think I was emotionally invested in. And I 100% want to continue the series now. I do think that this first book I'm gonna be giving 4 stars, which actually the first Veronica Speedwell book that I read, when I first read that, I also gave it 4 stars, and then after I had read the rest of the series and went back and reread it, I upped it to 5 stars. I feel like that could happen with this series. After I progress further in the series, when I come back to this one, I will probably have more of like intense feelings about it and want to give it 5 stars. But for now, it is 4 stars because I do think it was introducing us to the characters and this world, and I'm just excited to see what all of her other adventures are. I really liked the way that it was written, where she's now like an old lady and is like reflecting on her past. So you get moments where she like mentions things that hasn't happened yet, and she'll be like, oh, but that's a story for another day. I just loved it. I feel like this is exactly the kind of fantasy that I love. The next dragon book that I will be reading is Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. This one is an adult fantasy, and actually, interestingly, this book came out on the exact same day as Fourth Wing. They both were published on May 2nd and have gotten vastly different receptions. This book on Goodreads only has like 900 ratings, whereas Fourth Wing has like 130,000 ratings. It's kind of insane. I have not heard anybody talk about this or what anyone's opinions are. I'm very excited to read it. This is about a world where dragons were worshipped as gods, but humans forced them out, banished them. And now the last male dragon has come back to like the human realm, disguises himself as a human, and that's all that I know about it. But I'm very excited. Okay, I've been avoiding making this update because I'm DNFing Dragonfall. And I'm so sad about it. I am very sad about it. Firstly, because I thought I was gonna love this. So much so that I paid full price. I paid full price. And I don't like it. I'm like halfway through and it is feeling like such a chore to get through. And it's not even a very long book. It's barely over 300 pages. Oh my God, but it's such a slog. I think it's mostly down to the fact that I hate the writing. I really am not clicking with the writing. There's just a lot of things that I don't like about it. There's 3 perspectives and each perspective switches POV. So like one of them, the dragon character, is told in second person, which I honestly was not hating. I was like, oh, that's a little cool. Then we have the main character who's in first person. And then we have this random other character who's in third person. So every chapter we're switching from first person to third person to second person. And I'm sorry, I am sorry, L.R. Lamb, but you are not N.K. Jemisin, okay? I feel like the only author who I've successfully seen be able to switch up like that is N.K. Jemisin, and I'm sorry. You are just not her. You are not the 5th season. For a book called Dragonfall, there's a distinct lack of it being about dragons. The very first chapter, yes, there's dragons, but then the dragon goes into the human world and disguises himself as a human, and then no more dragons, which I'm like, that's not really what I wanted. Also, I'm halfway through and nothing has happened. There's no plot. Like, what is the plot? I can't tell you. Nothing has happened. I feel like there was a lot of potential with this book, and I'm sure a lot of people are really gonna love it. I just feel like if I keep pushing myself through it, I'm gonna get into a slump because I don't like it. I don't like it. And I think I will be unhauling it. I'm so sorry. I don't even care enough to like skim the last half of the book to find out what happens because I don't like, nothing is going on. I do not care. I am so uninterested. So we will be DNFing this and I will be moving on. However, I think seeing as my next book is gonna be Hearthstone, to get into the Pride and Prejudice spirit, I'm gonna watch Pride and Prejudice. Have I already watched Pride and Prejudice like 4 times this month? Do I watch it almost every night to fall asleep to? I don't know. These are all questions that just can't be answered. I don't know the answer. It's possible. It's possible that I watch this movie a lot, but I will also be watching it right now. All right, so I'm starting Hearthstone today. I'm so excited. I just have a feeling that I'm going to love this, and hopefully it makes up for DNFing the last book, because I need another win. I need this vlog to be successful. But here's the thing about me. Pride and Prejudice is my all-time favorite. The movie, I'm obsessed with. The BBC series, I'm obsessed with. The book, I'm obsessed with. Like, I just love Pride and Prejudice. So that is either gonna work in this book's favor or it's gonna be the reason why I hate it. And I feel like there's gonna be like no in between. I'm either gonna love it because of how Pride and Prejudice it is, or I'm gonna hate that. So I'm nervous, but I'm very excited. Okay, I'm only a couple chapters in and already it's charmed me. I love it. So like I said before, basically what's happening in here is you have these hordes of griffins who are attacking people, and the main character, Eliza, her youngest sister was actually killed by a griffin, and she found her body and that like greatly traumatized her. So they call in a band of dragon riders whose job is to come through and hunt down the griffins and protect people. And one of those dragon riders is Alistair, who is the Darcy character, and he's very, you know, grumpy. I'm just charmed. I'm charmed. The world, I love it. It's very fantasy. It's actually more like leaning more fantasy than I thought it was going to. There's all these little like mythical creatures. There's like these little hobgoblins who live in the garden, and they're like just like these little goblins that Eliza is friends with, and they're super cute. And then when I'm gonna call them Lizzie and Darcy because that's just easier for me. Lizzie is friends with the little hobgoblins, and when Darcy shows up, he accidentally steps on one and then gets really grumpy because it starts like throwing mud at him, and Lizzie's just sitting there like laughing at him. It is so cute. I'm just charmed. That's like all I have to say about it is I'm very charmed. I'm loving it. Oh my god. This is one of those instances where I feel like I have had a book on my shelf for years and years and years, and I've just been holding on to it, like just knowing that I'm gonna love it, and I do. It's so good. I'm now about halfway into Hearthstone. I'm still loving it so much. I really like how it is very much following the plot beats of Pride and Prejudice to a T. However, there's a lot more plot going on with all of the fantasy elements, with like the dragon riders, with hunting down the griffins. Like, there is the Pride and Prejudice plot. There's the ball, and like Darcy says something rude, and so Lizzie doesn't like him. Bingley and Jane fall in love. Mr. Wickham comes to town, and like there's all of like the like plot beats of Pride and Prejudice, but then there's also the added like they go hunting for these griffins, and like Lizzie kills one, and it's like really badass, and like she had to ride on a dragon with Darcy. Cute. I'm gonna keep calling them by their regular Pride and Prejudice names, because the one thing that I don't like is the name changes. Like, this is Pride and Prejudice, so like I would have been fine keeping all of the the original names, because I don't love the new names. Like, Bingley is Brisney, Jane is Angie, Lizzie is Eliza, Darcy is Dayard. Like, I would just be fine if they like kept their regular names. But I'm loving the fantasy aspect of this book. Like I said, there's much more plot outside of Pride and Prejudice, so it doesn't just feel like Pride and Prejudice with like a tiny bit of extra fantasy. It's like there's a whole fantasy plot going on that's super interesting. I also love the dragons. The dragons talk. I think that that's something that I'm realizing how much I loved from Fourth Wing, was that the dragons spoke and they had their own personalities, and they were like major characters of the book. And it's the same in this one. The dragons speak. They have their own quirks and personalities and interests, and I love that. I'm feeling 5 stars. I just am enjoying it so much. And I feel like this is like exactly what, like if I could craft my ideal book, it would be this. And now I'm like, Riley, why have you owned this for so long and it took you forever to read it? It's Pride and Prejudice. It has dragons. It has like a cozy, whimsical fantasy feel to it, but it also has more action. It's not like a cozy fantasy, and the romance is so amazing. I'm just obsessed with it, honestly. And I am going to purchase the other 2 books in the series. All right, I got the next 2 books in the Hearthstone series. So we have Dragon Shadow and Flamebringer. And I'm so excited to read these. I'm not gonna read them in this vlog, but on my Patreon in August, we're doing Sequel Slam, which is a readathon where we're only reading sequels. So I will be reading these 2 in August, and I'm so excited. All right, I finished Hearthstone. I think I wanna give it 5 stars. I just loved everything about it. It worked so perfectly for me. The romance was amazing. The fantasy was amazing. The dragons were by far my favorite dragons of this whole video. I really think I'm learning that for me, when it comes to dragons, I like the ones that have their own personality traits and can speak or communicate, versus like realistic dragons or dragon shifters, which very much did not feel like dragons ever in the book. And it actually ended up being a lot more intense and plot heavy than I was expecting. Like, I really was expecting to go into it like cute Regency fantasy, but like it got intense. There was murder and fighting and battles. It was so good. And I cannot wait to read the sequels now. I'm very interested to see how the plot goes in those, because obviously this one was following the general outline of Pride and Prejudice, but the sequels, I feel like they could go in any direction. So I'm just really excited to read those. And I'm excited that I found a new 5-star, potentially favorite series. And ultimately, this vlog was pretty successful, despite the fact that I did DNF Dragonfall, and I am very disappointed by it, because I did buy this book full price, brand new, which I don't do very often, and I need to stop. I had 2 wins, 2 books that I loved, 2 first books in series that I cannot wait to continue. And I also think I have started to figure out what I love in dragon books. I love ones with more of a historical vibe to them. I love ones where the dragons have their own personalities. I don't think I love ones where the dragons are shifters or not in dragon form throughout the book. I would love to know in the comments if you have any more dragon book recommendations for me, because I would love to read more, especially if they fit in with the vibe of these 2 books. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, please leave me a dragon emoji, of course. And also please like this video and subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon, where I post tons of exclusive content. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!